Hi, yeah. This video is about intelligent design. Yeah. But before I go into that, I would just like to talk to you a little bit about sharing. Um, First of all, you might be cherry picking these videos out. And if you do, a lot of what I say is not going to make any sense because you sort of got to. You can sort of skip the credibility videos at the very start if you wish. Yeah. But remember that I'm describing a window that, like I said, 10, 15 videos ago, or I can't remember how many. And I said, there's this window. You don't have to look inside, but if you do want, you need to build up incrementally because that's in order to understand the terms that they use. And otherwise, when I come in and if you cherry pick the video, then basically anybody listening to it will not make any sense of the video possibly. Yeah, it'll be quite difficult to understand the picture that I've built up so far, if you like. I'll probably try and do a summation of where we are with that picture. Yeah. In terms of intelligent design, oh sorry, and in terms of sharing, this may not be for you, but if it might be for other people. Yeah. And I'm going to try and transfer this media over to some of this over to YouTube, um, principally because I think it's a better in my view. I think what I've got to say is very important, and what I'm trying to explain by gentle shifts in maybe the way we look at things might help might help move things forward for you. And it's really about you. It's really not about me. The only credibility videos at the start are just introduce and say what I am and where I come from and all that. It's just so that you've got some connection to my background as far back as I can remember, when I was a child. Okay, intelligent design. I'll tell you why intelligent design means something. Because before 1666, you had God's will, and that was the primary author, as we, you thought the writer. In other words, he writes the world. Apparently, that's the way it goes. I'm sorry if I offended anybody about the demiurge thing, the separation God and stuff like that. I don't mean to. It's your entitlement, but it doesn't sit well with me because I more think that it's an easier way to think of the world and anything that extends beyond that world to be uh, not necessarily one, but and I'll explain why in a little while because it makes more sense. Uh, it's not necessarily one, but and that's why I wanted to move over to L, and then speak about intelligent design because that's what it means. L is an old god, like a god type thing, I haven't plucked this out of thin air, by the way, because it was one of the ones that was sort of dropped with Judaism, and they didn't want it. It was heavily Phoenician. Yeah, is that right? Is it? Who am I talking about now? L, yeah. Oh, yeah, L. Heavily Phoenician, yeah, and Phoenicia plays a big part in Galilee and in Golan, Tennis, the other side during the Herod period, yeah. Uh, so anyway, forget that. So God's will. So really, in my world, it's just will, yeah. But in that word, the people would say it was God's will, yeah. But my interpretation, I might have been a bit trite there. Don't way beyond that, yeah. I just forget the variable. Yeah. So here's God's will. So there's replace that with intelligent design. L means God. So when you say intelligent, you mean God's in the person because that's what it was originally. Yeah, the being was in the person. And and everything else is sort of an image. An image. Anyway. So intelligence was like, so the premise there, the central premise there is that God's will makes the earth, yeah, every move, everything, yeah, and there would also be, but by extension, and perhaps it may not have been couched, perhaps because of the anthropocentric net, but you take the net off, God is in everything, then, yeah, the universe or whatever. There's just some stuff that moves around or whatever that makes things move. Yeah? And but if you're moving from that, you need to talk about intelligent design. The assumption from going from will into intelligent design is that it is the assumption that there is design. And if you think there's design and a stasis, well then, bang, that's great. You can just put a wheel clamp on evolution and just stick a big E is equal to MC squared type thing. It's like a wheel clamp, really. Uh, that type of thinking, it really is holding things up. You know, so you got intelligent design. So with intelligent design, you had to be able to say, because the author, you've written the author out now, yeah, and you've got just your mind. Remember, it was always above and below, as above, so below. But you've got these yahoos that are coming in here and saying, no, no, it's the mind here, and then it's the world. It's the mind here and the world. Hence the informed minority kicks off the uninformed majority for what is now 400 years or so. Thereabouts. But just bear in mind that I think your man got it wrong. You got to acknowledge your being first, and then you got to get rid of these freaking non-beings, these freaking demons, and then forgive yourselves because you just didn't know what was going on. this is not. This is just old freaking Bible shit as well. And some of it is, but you know, it's choice. Yeah. You want to give yourself away, that's fine. Okay. And and you got to really understand that this artificial intelligence that's coming out now, what art and arch are the same thing. Like archangel, which will be an archangel later on, but archangel, like just the art, the thing that's over. That's why they call it artist. Alpha, or yeah, Ria, yeah. Um. So that type of artificial, like you're saying, God, and artificial God. You really need to check your references. If it was fucking the light end it, and whatever, it's just saying it's going to work in zero. Cyan is a good word. Cyan is a good word. It's got the snake. I mean, the river in it. But Z, that's the end. There you go. There's a big clue. That's the end. Follow the money. Money is just externalized time. That's how it started off. Like excess. It's conversion. It's just some commonality that would be have a shared value. External to the human being. Yeah. So, but the thing is, the production in order to obtain that excess was human beings' time. Hence, time is of the essence. Essence and light, probably the same thing. It depends on which window you want to look to. But you can't see life. You can see its effects, like gravity. You can only see its effects. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so you needed intelligence. God, what's in, yeah, 7 minutes. Okay. So you needed intelligent design in order so that, and then you needed necessary connection. You need necessary connection for human beings to be able to say what's going on in the world. Yeah. Otherwise, they can't say what's going on in the world. And in some scenarios, I'm going to bring it back. Let's say we go back maybe 30,000 years. I'm going to sort of do imagination type. Some of the junk that you got here, particularly anything based from the syllogisms, like logic and things like that, you're going to have to ditch an awful lot of that because you're going to be bit blank, mental blank. And I'll explain a priori and a story stereo in another video. Yeah, it's old terms for something. Yeah, but I'll explain that later on. Maybe next thing. But intelligent necessary connection was a huge thing. You had to be able to say and be able to have it verbalized and to be able to say that this, yeah, if this, then this, yeah, and that's something like even though we use that sort of conditional sort of phraseology in science and whatever, we can't take it back to the paradigm 30,000 years or 2 million years ago, wherever you want to go. You can't have that degree of reason, yeah, because reason changes. Being is all the same. Yeah, reason is there. It's just a technical tool to make sure you get through your journey. It's all the time. And if you start using somebody else's end, you know what I mean. You as an end in itself, as your own vehicle, like with an over. You're giving you're paying the petrol for somebody else's purpose. But and it's these non-being things. I mean, when I talk about non-beings, you really got to say, when we spoke about Kuhn's paradigm and then extending that into to attach some of Spinoza type of window, but then you join those together, and that's quite happy. It's just anything you believe, as of any now, as of any here, everything you believe, everything you believe. That's your paradigm. Yeah, and the tools that you use to engage with life, and the techniques, and the beliefs that you have, and all that stuff together. That's your paradigm, and you wouldn't know what was outside that paradigm. Some people do, but in order to get outside that paradigm, you really got to go very, very primitive, and that's why I'd like to go a little bit, if you want, yeah. It's entirely. So you needed intelligent design, and you needed necessary connection. Necessary connections. I need to explain that, but uh, it's a it's a deeper notion. But so I got to pass it. I'm just saying necessary connection. You needed these things, yeah, in order to be able to make statements about the world. And you brought the same syntax that arrived from evolution, and largely an awful lot from Plato and Aristotle. So when you're thinking about in terms of objects, you know, um, in the verbal world, it's sort of different. And when I spoke about means and ends and things like that, means is just Aristotle's efficient cause, we tend to think of it in physicality, a lot of it in physicality, drop a stone and things like that. But you've got to engage will into that, yeah, because will and efficient cause sort of coexist in one thing, yeah. So to separate them out, I think there is inherent will in most cause, particularly human cause, yeah. And it's some of it's implicit and some of it's explicit in my view. But I might be put more meat on that bone, yeah. So yes, that's what you. There was something else. Yes, right. Here we go. Now the thing is, if everything was designed, and like I think a guy called Marbranch, his view was that every moment God made every moment. Yeah, that's this. You've got to understand. It's a different type of paradigm. Yeah, God every moment, and then swishes them all together, and then everything just continues. Yeah, yeah, and it is to an extent. There's no freaking individuation, no mathematical, you know, no mathematical inheritance of somebody else's system. If that makes any sense to you. So yeah, what now was I? There's nothing. That's what just pop in, and then right. So that way, like so this was the type of thinking, like what, and that connection from from moment to moment and moment to moment, and this sort of interface with the moment to moment. You might want to bring a Gottlieb Leibniz in later on with the ecstasy uh, piece of, which is bullshit. But I can explain that with a few drawings. Moving on, 12 minutes. Right, is that it on the intelligence? And that's what it means. L means God. And then when you think of L, think of remember Elysium. Or is that Elysium the one Gladiator? Elysium, so L E E. I think it means there. Yeah, I think it's epsilon, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. Elysium, like L there, if that makes sense. And that's why, like, I didn't just pick L out of a hat. But I just wanted to distinguish it from the objectification on Sistine Chapel. That's all, and that type of concept. The man with the beard coming down with the stick and all. Right, okay. So, and then the other one, the obvious one here with L is Elohim. Yeah, and there's a connection there because Elohim, and that's quite a good one actually. Because even though the L and the feeling, and it's not. You've got to realize it's not affecting God. It's it's just it's more like a mood or a spirit paradigm, but you touch things without the language. That's that type of engagement. But you can get that. I believe you can get that. And I think of that expression. That's how each and every one can have actually. And I know it's very far fetched, but it's a better fucking scheme than what you've got at the moment. You've not. You've got stasis, and that stasis is just funded by greed. That's not going to work. It's on its way down. It's going to, like it's tenderhooks. Even in Ireland, like I mean, the government. I mean, there's a huge thing going on with the government, but they're in it at their depth. I mean, and it's not necessarily. I mean, a lot of this was set up years and years ago. Not these characters that are there now. A lot of this was set up years ago, and your means. If you just carry on with the means without having a real objective as to what really is down at that end, well, then you are where you are. Yeah. So you need to define what your end is, and we did, but it's actually in the preamble. But somebody says, "No, we're going down this way, the demon way. The big zero." Like, I mean, you think it might be laughable, but the amount of causal interfaces that causes you as a human being, and you walk into a company and you hope this with the company, and you crouch the company, you look at the company, the company, thing, obeying its laws, signing his NDAs, doing this, and talking about it as if it's fucking real, and it's not. It's just fucking magic. Strange magic. Actually, that was another one. And then another one, I've got to say, never mind, I won't go there yet. Uh, right, so you're going to have this picture, right? Oh, yeah, have it on the intelligence area. So, intelligence area, yeah. So you need that to make statements, yeah. But Hobbes, yeah. You see, the thing is, if everything's planned according to God, and this design moves, yeah, and we're the same, like, we do the moving and stuff like that, and we're actually in that, we are part of God's will. But if God's all good, and somebody kills somebody, and somebody else steals from somebody else, strangles somebody or something like that, well, then how do you deal with this with intelligent design? Yeah, how do you deal with that with intellment inside? But it wasn't individuated in the way I'd like to do it. An individual by person. It was it was a collective, general type of engagement. So how did you get around that? Hobbes got around it. He said, because the problem was free will. He said that was up for grabs. If everything's moved along with, and a guy stabs and rapes and murders the thing, that in essence within the ambit or the paradigm of the God will paradigm from before, that is actually part of God's will then. And God is good and he can't be, and then what happens? So Hobbes did a work around it. And he actually did a work, and he mentioned free will, no impediments, blah, 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 liberty, free will and liberty. And remember, this guy is one of the guys that's going to be feeding into US, yeah. Him and Adams, I think there's somebody else than Adams, and there was another guy up north. I think Hume might have had David Hume might have had a go at that. And he's quite important because he's quite important later on with Hume's thought and the induction loop. And I think I can help about it. Yeah. Maybe, but it's a different view. Yeah. And then you have right. Yes, he did the walk around, and blah 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 blah. And then he said, and everything there, and life goes on or whatever like that in a chain in a chain, of necessity. Yeah. Uh, it's not a chain of necessity. See, will and necessity are two entirely different things. This is an attempt to take Aristotle's um, final cause out, what Christians might refer to as the spirit, taking one person out of the tree thing or the Aristotle poor thing or whatever. I mean, there's many different taxonomies, not taxonomy, but arrangements that you have. It depends on how you individuate, and individuation internally may not necessarily be a good thing, particularly if it's mathematical individuation with all its precision. And it's only it's a fuzzy logic. It's a fuzzy thing just to use, like a alive, dead, never alive. And I'll bring it in later when we start thinking about, when we go back 30,000, 30 million years, and we start, when you start to individuate your existence in terms of now, before, and after. It's a different type of arrangement. Yeah. So right. Yeah, he did a walk around necessity, and this is a big deal, because this all sort of stuff ties in with Jean-Jacques Rousseau and all that lot, but it's the same paradigm. It's just within that temporal period era, if you like. And it's all sort of happening at the same time. And then you had John Locke, and and you have the social contract, and the social contract in their minds would have been based on Aristotle. But oh no, the guys in Europe are going to come along, and it's all Cartesian, numbers. It's up to you. If you want to have your grandsons or great grandsons with a number, with number blah 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 number. Please report to your local Dignas between the 7-Eleven and your local chippy. Yeah, right in there. Yeah, or do you want to give them a chance and to build these guys up, let's say, for over a couple of hundred years, and then at least give them some chance. I think that because I think you kept in the dark quite a lot. It's 19 minutes. I've got to look. So you've got to think about this AI thing, and and how things would go along. And see, I can see a situation where you could be sitting on a hill or in a lawn or something like that, just enjoying your day, and you're sitting there with Alexis and Siri and some other human phone that looks like a woman, or a woman might look like a man, or another type of job. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, and these things will be able to take you to court, and will have a causal effect on your life. And you may not think that, and that's fine. Because these will be the non-natural, legal persons only by virtue of the law. Would you mate and would you put up there? Yeah, or only by knowledge. And you might think that's a bit far-fetched, like a machine taking to and Alexis and Siri are fucking protected terms. I forgot to say that. That's really naughty. Including Intel is inside. That's very naughty. That type of language. Um, uh, it's difficult for me to explain for me, and that's just my personal view. Yeah. So, right. So they would have more. They could have probably equal. Like machines would have. Well, you think it's absurd what's happening today? It's only a question of degree of absurdity. It's a choice. Just got to acknowledge things. What's that? Yeah. So you have these are machines, yeah, and in my view, no matter what you produce there, you know, it wouldn't matter. It could sit there in this, I think, with all its algorithms and all this picking thing and all this that, and the other, and all this, statistical, statistical availabilities. Yeah. But the thing is, it will never pen Mr. Blue Sky, whether you have one monkey for an eternity or a single monkey or many monkeys, or it doesn't matter. It can't, because the guy who is inspired. Jesus yellow, yeah, and great guy. I mean, he's got the thing about keeping things to himself, but the spirit doesn't really talk to three people at the same time, does it? It just talks to one person, you know. So, and he's a big deal. He's the guy that wrote Living Thing, Mr. Blue Sky, and Strange Magic. So I would suggest maybe, and I like the music uh, paradigm thing with. You see, sort of got to think that Neoplatonism is to Plato, but Plato is to Pythagoras, but Pythagoras is to somebody went and but he was to somebody else. But Pythagoras had it right, so like he said, it was music. He was a big number one music. He thought he could explain it with numbers, which in effect fucking did, like sort of, you know what I mean? But it's ratios, not decimals. There's no such thing as pi is equal to 3.14. It's not. It's a nonsense. It's just decimalization. It's it's an invention, yeah. But it's a technique, yeah. It's just your correspondence with it. It's a ratio of 22/7. That's what it is. It's a ratio, yeah. And that's why Pythagoras saw things in some aspects because he thought that upstairs, up above, and here and music sort of connected, and that's why maybe you might be interested in listening to a new world record, not a new world order, a new world record by ELO, and that's a good one. And then there's another one with another thing, and he's got really beautiful music and really beautiful lyrics. Or if you don't want to do that, you can always, well, I think you'd be a fool, and with that, I'd switch you over to what a fool believes. Um, that to me sounds like an old Phoenician story, actually. Those lyrics.